coverage all year long. The Scarlet and Gray Podcast, a Network 216 production. Live weekdays on the Network 216 YouTube channel. Send us all your questions and comments on Twitter at @VSG_podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Tyler Johnson, Jordan Dalton, and Nick Leisure.
Good evening, Buckeye Nation. Welcome to the first episode of Season 3. I am Tyler Johnson. I am riding solo for this one. So just a couple updates real quick before we get into tonight's show. We've been off for, I want to say, since February, actually. Main reason is my wife and I just had our first child. So he is now about to be 4 months old. So yeah, we've been just kind of enjoying that time together, kind of taking a break. Jordan, JD, he might be on the show from time to time, but he and his wife had their second kid in February, so he's got a couple boys running around now, so he's staying pretty busy. So we'll see if he's on from time to time. But also Nick, I know you guys really like Nick. He and his wife are actually expecting their first child any day now. So we'll see when he'll be back on the show. So I'm riding solo now for the time being, but we just wanted to say thank you to everyone just that hangs out with us every single week. I know we took a long break and had some people asking just kind of what the situation was with the show. And yeah, we just kind of needed a break. There's a lot happening in our lives. Ideally, we would love the show to be year-round. That is kind of the main goal, is to make the show a year-round thing. Because I know a lot of people really liked the episodes where we went around the Big Ten. We had a beat writer on from each Big Ten team. We wanted to do something like that. Of course, this year it just didn't work out. But something else we want to get back to in the future is having some more guests on. I've reached out to a couple former Buckeyes as well to kind of just go back down memory lane a little bit with them. So if we have any guest announcements, of course, we'll announce those. But just wanted to say thank you to everyone, just as always, tuned into the show, because we really do appreciate that, and everyone that does support it. You guys have crushed it as far as on social media. We are close to 14,000 followers on Twitter, X. So that doesn't happen without your support. So just wanted to say we really do appreciate that, and just kind of some plans for the show moving forward. So regardless if it's me, if it's Nick and I, whatever the case may be, the way the show is going to work is we're still going to have an episode every single week. Probably going to be Mondays at 7:00, but it'll just kind of depend on like what the week looks like. If we're busy, and either way, we do plan to have one show a week until we get to the regular season, and then we will be bringing back the game day previews. I know that's something a lot of people really enjoy, and having those actually released the day of the game. So we are going to make sure that we are doing that for you guys, of course. So the first one will be in a couple weeks. Ohio State and Texas. I know everyone's really excited about that, but just wanted to let you guys know just kind of the future of the show. And thank you so much for everyone that's just been rocking with us during this ride. We really do appreciate that. And like I said, this is season 3. We've been doing this now for 3 years, and it's just been kind of crazy just to see how the support has grown, the guests we've had. And if you ever want to check out any of the interviews we've had, we have interviewed Lincoln Keyholtz. We interviewed him when he was a freshman at Ohio State. He could be the future starting quarterback. If you want to go back and hear that interview, just go on the YouTube channel, look at the playlist. You can look up any interview you want to watch. So we interviewed Aaron Nolan as well. We wish him all the best as he heads to South Carolina. I know we haven't had a chance to really talk about that a lot either. But so if you guys want to check out any of the old archives, just go on the YouTube channel. They're all there. Also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if anyone's watching who has not done so, we do ask if you would give us a 5-star review on Apple. We actually had some Michigan fans that infiltrated that and basically left us a ton of 1-star reviews, which has completely tanked our overall rating. So if anyone would go on there and just leave a quick 5-star review. You don't even have to write anything. Just click 5-star review. It really would help the show out a lot. So again, it's completely free to do that. So just go drop a 5-star review. We really would appreciate that. The Scarlet and Gray podcast also is still part of Network 216. I know I had some questions about that. Yep, still part of Network 216. So really happy to be there and all the work that they do over there. A lot of great content talking Cleveland Cavaliers, Cleveland Guardians, and in the future here, hopefully adding Cleveland Browns content as well. So make sure you're tuned in for that. The show is also proud to be a partner of Wedgewood Estates in Mansfield, 600 South Trimble Road, locally family-owned and operated for over 27 years. Wedgewood Estates is the area's premier senior residential community in north central Ohio. Be sure to visit them at wedgwoodseniorliving.com. That is wedgwoodseniorliving.com. And one thing I want to do, as long as we're doing more of these solo episodes for the time being, if you guys have any questions or any comments, feel free just to share them in the chat. Any questions you have, I'll get to as many as I can because I want to make the audience more of a part of the show. We try and do that the best we can, but, sometimes, and I'll admit I'm guilty of it. I know Nick will admit he is too. Jordan will too. Sometimes we kind of just ramble on a little bit. It's just the way things go. You get on a thought train, and then we might see some good questions or comments, and maybe we miss them in the chat. So at least while I'm riding solo, I'm going to do my best. Any questions you guys have, please drop them so I can get to as many as possible. Because again, I want to really interact with you guys more this season and just see kind of what questions we have, any comments, and let's just have a fun overall show. So, first episode of season 3, we're going to talk 2025 college football season. We are going to talk, we're Ohio State centric, of course, around here, but with it being a couple weeks until the season, we are going to do a Buckeye only show, like where we just talk Buckeye schedule. We'll kind of predict the games ahead of time, kind of just predict what players we're expecting to make a big impact. And then eventually that'll be just strictly Ohio State. But we wanted to do a show that was all college football. And it's actually a perfect day for it because today the 2025 coaches poll was released. So just a little background on the coaches polls. These are preseason polls. At the end of the day, it truly means absolutely nothing. It's just based off opinions. That's really all it is. That's all it ever really is. Same with the AP poll. The real poll that's going to matter is the college football playoff poll. And when those are released, those are the only ones that matter at the end of the day because that determines whether or not you are in the top 12 and qualify for the college football playoff. But with the release of the coaches poll, I figured great time to do a preview show and kind of just talk about the overall teams this year a little bit, some teams that might surprise, some teams that maybe will underachieve. So this is going to be centric around that. But if you have any Ohio State questions, any questions regarding any of the other teams in college football, drop them in the chat. Get to as many of them as I can. So starting off, I'm just going to read off the top 10 list. So in the coaches poll at number 1, you have the Texas Longhorns. Ohio State is number 2. Your Buckeyes, returning college football national champions, are ranked number 2, not number 1. It's kind of interesting with that one. Penn State is ranked 3rd, Georgia 4th, Notre Dame 5th, Clemson 6th, Oregon 7th, Alabama 8th, LSU 9th, and Miami 10th. So before we kind of just go and talk about some of these teams, I will say this. I'm not entirely surprised that Texas is ranked number 1. I mean, the Longhorns are returning a ton of talent. Everyone knows that. You're bringing Arch Manning back at quarterback. Now, we'll get more into Arch when we do our Ohio State versus Texas game day preview. But I'll just say this about Arch Manning. I do believe he is very talented. I think there's no denying that. He is a mobile quarterback. He's a lot different than every other member of his family. He is actually very mobile, the complete opposite of Eli, Archie Manning, and Peyton. Complete opposite. I do believe he is going to be a pretty good quarterback. The one thing I will say that I am a little tired of, and I know other Buckeye fans are too, everyone's crowning Arch Manning that he is like the king of college football and the best quarterback in college football, and he has started 3 career games. So I just think it's a little premature to do that. But there's no doubt Texas is absolutely loaded. Ryan Wingo, Khalil Lockett. I mean, they all kinds of talent on the offensive side of the ball. You got Colin Simmons on the defensive side. They've lost talent, but Texas, not surprised. They're ranked number 1 in the coaches poll. We'll get to the Buckeyes here at the end just because, again, I want to talk about other teams more than Ohio State, but any Ohio State questions, drop them in the chat, please. Number 3, Penn State. So I can see this. Penn State, I've seen Penn State as high. Some people even saying just on their own accord is that Penn State is the number one team in the country. I mean, it's kind of hard to argue talent-wise when you bring back Allen, you bring back Singleton, you bring back Drew Aller. I mean, the team from top to bottom looks absolutely stacked. But the biggest thing I come back to with Penn State, the head coach is James Franklin. And funny enough, when my wife and I were traveling on vacation, on our family vacation, I ran into someone at the airport that was behind me in a coffee line, and he was a Penn State fan. And we got to talking, and he even said the same thing. As Penn State fans, as Penn State fans, don't get me wrong, we know we have a talented team, but with James Franklin as the head coach, we just don't think we're ever going to get over that hump. And so I do think that's the biggest question with Penn State. Is James Franklin a good enough head coach to actually get them where they need to be? I don't see it. And I also just need to see Drew Aller actually stretch the field consistently. That was the other big thing with Penn State. It was all Allen, all Singleton. And everyone's trying to talk about what a great prospect Aller is going to be, NFL prospect. You don't see him consistently throwing the football down the field. I mean, and again, people could say the same about Will Howard last year. But you're trying to say Drew Aller is a top 5 quarterback, but he's not even remotely showing that consistently to even demonstrate that. Like, he's got the build you want. He's athletic. He can make plays with his feet. I need to see him consistently stretch the ball down the field to think that he can actually be a top quarterback in college football, because right now that's really what's holding him back. And I am curious to see about Penn State. Losing Tyler Warren in the passing game is going to be absolutely huge for them. A lot of people are not talking enough about that, talking about everybody that Penn State is bringing back and not enough about what they have lost. So just something to keep in mind with Penn State. But I have no doubt that they are truly one of the most talented teams in college football. And you could make the argument on paper, not that on paper actually means anything, but they are the most talented team in college football. Running Ballman says, welcome back, guys. Well, thank you, sir. Really appreciate that. And again, I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the show, but just remember, this always helps out the show if you just drop a like on the video and subscribe if you are brand new to the channel. Also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, I said it earlier, leave us a 5-star review. You can also subscribe to the show on there or add it to your favorite podcast platform, so make sure you go ahead and do that. Next at number 4 is the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, I have questions about Gunnar Stockton, about if he actually is good enough to be the starting quarterback at Georgia. Georgia is kind of in a tough period where I just don't really know what they're doing at quarterback, because Gunnar Stockton, he's athletic. We know that. Like, this isn't new to anybody. He's always been very athletic. I need to see him consistently throw the ball down the field. I think that's really the biggest thing for Georgia, is can he do enough of that in the passing game? Because they lose Carson Beck. That's a whole other thing that really just turned out kind of weird, is Beck decided to transfer to Miami. He got a ton of money to do it. So I guess I can understand it, but either way, it's that whole thing is weird. And we'll talk about Miami here a little bit later, because they are in the top 10 in the coaches poll, and I don't understand that whatsoever. But Georgia, of course, they're loaded again. Defensive line, the defense looks good once again. The offense is questionable. You add Zachariah Branch. I know they gave him a pretty penny to come to Georgia. I just don't know about Georgia. I really don't know if they're good enough. I know they're always there at the end, so I mean, they're going to dirty games up and they're going to find a way to be there. I just don't know how much better they're going to be under Gunnar Stockton. And right now, if you're asking me, I don't know if Georgia is a top 5 team. That's just my personal opinion. So we'll see what happens with the Bulldogs. And then you look at number 5, Notre Dame. They were runner-ups last year to Ohio State. Notre Dame loses Riley Leonard, and, they bring back Jeremiah Love, and that's the number one thing with the Fighting Irish. They do bring back Jeremiah Love, who I'll say I think he's one of the best players in college football. I really do. I think he's he's the best running back in college football. He most likely, it's just my opinion, is that he will end up at the Heisman ceremony. I just have a feeling he's going to be in the Final Four. because he's just that good and he's going to get that many touches. The only thing that's going to stop him is if he gets hurt, of course. But that offense is going to run through him. CJ Carr is looking like he's going to be the starter. But we'll see what ends up happening there at Notre Dame. But I really just think it's going to be Jeremiah. It's the Jeremiah Love show. And really, he does. I mean, Jadarian Price is a pretty good backup. He is. But Jeremiah Love could lead college football in rushing, lead in rushing touchdowns. Wouldn't surprise me. So Notre Dame will be there. And Notre Dame, I think, will always end up in the college football playoff unless they just ultimately just don't perform. Because I do think they're a talented team. Their schedule varies from year to year. They'll always lose, it looks like, one game where you think, oh, okay, well, they should have won this game. It seems to happen every year with Notre Dame. But as long as they are healthy, as long as they get solid – I'm saying solid. They don't even need elite quarterback play. If they get solid quarterback play, they will be in the college football playoff this year. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind saying that. And now – at 6, I think this is too low. It's Clemson. Clemson ranked 6th in the coaches poll. Again, I don't read too much into these polls. It's more so just kind of analyzing it now, talking to some of these teams. Clemson returns, in my opinion, as of right now, probably the best quarterback in college football in Cade Klubnik. I know some people say he's inconsistent. He is. I like the mobility, though. I like his toughness. I think he can make almost any throw on the field. I like Clemson, TJ Moore, Bryant Wesco Jr., Antonio Williams. That core right there is going to be a top 5 receiving core in the country, most likely. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you bring back TJ Parker, Peter Woods. You add Will Healit from the Purdue transfer. I really just like what they've done. I do. I think this team is loaded. I think if there's a team that could really make a run, that some people are wondering, okay, who could challenge Ohio State? Who could challenge Texas? And I'll even put Notre Dame in that category. Who could challenge Notre Dame? It's gonna be Clemson. I'll say this: I wouldn't be surprised if Clemson's lifting that trophy at the end of the year. I think Clemson is that good. Everyone makes fun of Dabo for his antics, and rightfully so, because I'm kind of in that boat too. But yeah, Clemson's for real this year. They're going to end up being a pretty good football team. So, and again, as long as Cade Klubnik stays healthy, I like Clemson to make some noise this year because, again, they're also in the ACC. And, yeah, we have our ACC jokes aplenty around here. Next up at number 7 is Oregon. Oregon is another one of those teams that I just don't know. Because the quarterback that you're looking at is going to be Dante Moore. There were some Buckeye fans that wanted him when he entered the transfer portal. He's most likely going to be your starting quarterback. They add Mekhi Hughes, who is one of the best running backs in the country. Add him from Tulane. That's a huge transfer pickup. I can't even deny that. You add DeCorey Moore at wide receiver. Outside of that, I have questions about their outside playmakers. That right now, you lose Terrence Ferguson, you lose Tez Johnson. They lost Evan Stewart for the year. That was just brutal to lose him that early on. So feel really bad for him because that's just a brutal situation right there to lose him. You lose Trayshawn Holden. I will say they've added some really solid, really good transfers once again. Not that that's a surprise. They add Bear Alexander, the transfer that seems like he plays somewhere else every single year. He's like the Zoltan Ibrahimovic of college football, if you know, soccer fans. But the big pickup is Dylan Thieneman, the safety from Purdue. I can say Ohio State really wanted to add him this offseason. They actually had a visit scheduled with him. Oregon sealed the deal, and he never visited Ohio State. If you could have paired Thielman and Downs together, you're looking at probably one of the best duos you could ever put together at the safety position in college football history, potentially, because they're both just really, really good players, elite level talents. So him going to Oregon is huge for the Ducks. He'll be the leader on the back end of the defense. And then good freshman coming in. I know Buckeye fans aren't going to want to hear some of these names. Naheem Alford coming in. He'll probably get reps as a freshman at corner. Trey McNutt might get some reps at safety as a freshman potentially. Dorian Brew, another one. Again, a lot of Buckeye fans can be familiar with some of these names. Brandon Finney Jr. as the Buckeyes were in on some of these players too. Naheem Alford actually flipped from Ohio State on signing day. There's rumors that Oregon offered him a shoe deal to make that happen. I don't know about that, but either way, kind of hilarious if that is the case that you're offering that for a high school kid. But yeah, I have questions about Oregon. I really just don't know what to expect from them. Because again, I don't really know what to expect from Dante Moore, but he's in a team-friendly offense. I can say that. And there are playmakers around him, at least in the backfield. Again, I have questions about their other playmakers on the outside. But you're also returning on defense one of the best pass rushers in the country, Mateo Ugiangale. So the Ducks will be a factor this year. There's no doubt in my mind. I don't know if they go back-to-back in the Big Ten, but they will be a team to watch as always. Number 8, Alabama. The Crimson Tide are in an interesting position. You lose Jalen Milroe, so you lose one of the most electric playmakers in the country. So you lose him. You bring back Ryan Williams, and you lose Justice Haynes at running back. He transfers to Michigan. What to expect from them is going to be interesting. They still have Jam Miller. He's going to most likely be their starter. But then you look at outside of Ryan Williams, they still have Caden Proctor, Isaiah Horton. They added him as well to be their most likely he'll end up being their ex wide receiver, the transfer from Miami. So a lot of talent there, but the biggest question is at the quarterback position. For me, Ty Simpson, you have Austin Mack, and then you have Keelan Russell, the true freshman. I highly doubt they're going to start a true freshman at quarterback. I just have my doubts on that. It doesn't mean they won't. I just don't know if they actually will at this point. But I think Ty Simpson is the favorite there, and I can say as someone who doesn't watch every Alabama game, because a lot more people are going to watch them out there than I do, just because I don't watch a ton of SEC football. I can say I don't know much about Ty Simpson, but I'd say he's the favorite just based off of raw experience. Austin Mack is interesting because as a sophomore, redshirt sophomore, if he ends up winning the job and plays well this year, he can either head to the draft, or you have a situation where he could potentially keep Keelan Russell on the bench for another year. And then that gets a little dicey because this Keelan Russell then transfer. I doubt he would transfer, but you just have to keep these things in mind with this era of college football. So Alabama being 8, it doesn't surprise me. I'm not as high on Alabama, at least at this point. So them being 8 is a little high for me. I believe that the team that's behind them should actually be ranked ahead of them and potentially even in the top 5, because I just think their roster on paper is one of the best in college football, especially with the players you're returning. That's the LSU Tigers. LSU's roster, it looks so good. It really does. I mean, you're talking NFL talent across the board. Barryon Brown, the transfer from Kentucky, speedster. Nick Anderson, transfer from Oklahoma. That leads your wide receiving core right there. Then you bring back Garrett Nussmeier, who some believe, not me personally, some believe he's the best quarterback in college football. So you bring him back. That right there is huge for the Tigers. And then look at their running back, Caden Durham, still there, Caleb Jackson, Harlan Berry, the true freshman 5-star, he's there. I mean, this team is just so stacked. And it's a team that you expect to be very good this year. You do. You bring back Harold Perkins as well, Harold Perkins Jr. He's coming back from injury. This is a team, though, again, championships are not won on paper, but on paper, this is a championship team. They're that good. Another big question, though, with LSU is the same one you have with Penn State. is the coaching good enough? That is the million-dollar question. And I don't know if Brian Kelly is good enough to get this team over the hump. I don't. I think he has his moments, but every year LSU seems to lose a couple games that they shouldn't lose. And Garrett Nussmeier, we saw him last year buckle under pressure. We'll see how he does this year. I still think he's a pretty good quarterback, but one thing he just seems to, when he locks onto a receiver, he's not going to move off and he's going to throw that football no matter what. And there were just too many times last year I just saw way too many bad interceptions from him. So if he takes that next step, this team, if Garrett Nussmeier takes the step that everyone believes he can, then this is a championship level team, because I even think that they're just that stacked. Barion Browning going to LSU is huge. Leaving Kentucky to go to LSU, I know Nick roots for Kentucky because his wife and her family are Kentucky fans and they have season tickets to Kentucky games. But I mean, even he would agree, him getting out of Kentucky is the best thing for his career at this point with everything they have going on at quarterback. They clearly have not found a consistent way to get him the football. So I think him going to LSU is a great fit. And we'll see what happens with the Tigers. But yeah, this team it's just another stacked roster that I think should be a lot higher than number 9. Again, coach's poll doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It just doesn't. And then number 10, and this is where I don't know if you're doing it just based off the team name. That's the thing I can't really figure out. I don't understand what qualifies Miami to be ranked in the top 10 in a preseason poll. I don't see it. Now, of course, you add Carson Beck. Is Carson Beck enough that he's going to make this a team that should be in the college football playoff? I don't know. What Carson Beck are you getting? Are you getting Carson Beck from 2024? Or are you getting Carson Beck from 2023? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. And with Carson Beck, he's coming off shoulder surgery. And he already started throwing, and he looked all right. I mean, it's kind of hard to see. I mean, you're talking about practice. That's really what you're talking about. And they add C.J. Daniels. They add Tony Johnson as transfers for him on the outside. Keelan Marion, they add him as well. So they've added plenty of weapons for him. You got Mark Fletcher Jr., Jordan Lyle in the backfield. And a lot of Buckeye fans might recognize that name as well, Jordan Lyle. But you just look at this group, and I just don't see a team that's a top 10 team. Now, the thing, of course, Miami has in its favor, their schedule is just – Miami's schedule is just – it is what it is. I mean, it's very easy for them. They're in the ACC. All of that benefits them. I mean, you're talking about – you have Florida. That's going to kick off their season. And, you know, the Gators, I think the Gators can win that game. But if Miami loses that game, you got Florida A&M, Ball State, South Florida, Virginia Tech, Cal, Louisville, Florida State, Duke, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, and Syracuse. That is Miami's schedule. Maybe that's why they're in the top 10, because everyone assumes they're going to get in the playoff. I guess that's it. And if you look at that schedule, I can see why people would think that. But, I mean, even Duke, Darian Mensah, quarterback, bringing him in from Tulane, they could pose a threat. I mean, there are teams in here that could pose a threat to Miami. There are. So I'm really curious to see how this ends up working out. So we'll see what happens in Miami. Again, I just think they're overrated. I really do. And then other teams just that I'm kind of intrigued by overall. I really want to see South Carolina's ranked 13th in the coaches poll. I want to see if they're legit. Lenoris Sellers, he's a ridiculous athlete, and I'm not here to say otherwise. But that's a question for me. Can he be enough for South Carolina? Because South Carolina doesn't have all the top-tier talent that these other SEC teams do. But they have Dylan Stewart and they have Lenoris Sellers. That's pretty good, I would say. So we'll see what happens with the Gamecocks this year. Michigan's ranked 14th. I don't really know what to say to that. I mean, sure, I guess. They have questions, though, at quarterback. They have, everyone's assuming Bryce Underwood. Sure, probably. It's still a true freshman starting at quarterback for you. and they have a pretty brutal schedule, so I don't know if they should be ranked that high. Bring Justice Haynes in at running back, but you lose Colson Loveland, who is your main target in the passing game. I don't know. I'm even a Buckeye fan saying this is kind of just kind of hilarious. I'm sure some people are going to be laughing about it, but it's just I just don't see a top 15 team there. But you know what? That's where they are currently in the coaches poll. Curious about SMU with Kevin Jennings at quarterback, and I want to see how they build on that college football playoff appearance from last season. Because I don't know what's going to happen with SMU. It's really unfortunate just that they had the performance that they did in the college football playoff because that's just really hard for me to watch. I was rooting for them. I knew they weren't going to be Penn State, but I just wanted to see if a team like that could compete against a team like that, against a top Big Ten team like that, and they struggled. So I want to see how they bounce back this year after just that failure in the college football playoff and utter embarrassment kind of for their program for that to happen on the road. And then Indiana's ranked 19th. Now they don't play anybody whatsoever. I'm going to tell people this about Indiana, though. They'll probably be there at the end because of their schedule, at least for a Big Ten title. So they'll definitely be there. And I'm telling others right now, don't sleep on Fernando Mendoza, the Cal transfer. He could end up being the top quarterback in the 2026 NFL draft. I'm telling you, he's that good of a player. He's not Curtis Rourke by any means. He is better. He is more athletic. He can make plays. He can seem to make every single throw on the field. And I think him in a Kurt Cignetti offense is just going to be absolutely – it's going to be absolutely insane. He's going to put up huge numbers, and he's a dark horse Heisman candidate in my mind because he's going to be in the Big Ten. And even though people are going to be like, oh, strength of schedule, if he's putting up numbers in the Big Ten, people are going to say, oh, he's putting up numbers in the Big Ten. So I think he's a dark horse Heisman candidate. But overall, I don't really buy Indiana. Running Ballman asks, clean out the cat box. Maybe we think of that team up north. Are we going to beat them this year? This would be an easy answer to just say yes. It's just so hard to actually say that because it seems like every single time we feel like we have the better team, and I do think that's the case this year. It never seems to actually matter because we just get completely bullied in the trenches. So let me answer this question for you fairly once we get closer to the end of the season and we've had a chance to see both teams. Right now, I would believe that we will beat them this year, but you're going to Ann Arbor with a first-year quarterback. Now, again, they'll have 1-2 most likely in Bryce Underwood, but either Julian Sander or Lincoln Keenholz will be a first-year starter. Going on the road to the Big House is never easy, especially with that being the last game of the year. So we'll see. As of right now, I'm going to say yes, but I have the right to reserve judgment on that one. But no, that's a good question. Anyone else has any other questions, drop them in the chat here. We're going to be wrapping things up here shortly on these solo pods. Probably not going to go the full hour, most likely, unless we get a lot of really good questions, a lot of good comments to kind of dive into things a little bit more. Just because without a co-host, it kind of get tired of hearing my voice a little bit, and sometimes my voice just gets a little tired. So yeah, solo pods will probably be a little bit shorter in the future. Just kind of letting you guys know. So, but yeah, going back to Indiana. They're going to probably be there at the end and very well in the playoff again, most likely, unless something unforeseen happens. But that's just my thought on that. I am curious about Oklahoma. They were not in the top 25. They add John Mater at quarterback. They add Jay Knott. I do think they're going to be a lot better than they were last year in their first year in the SEC. But Brett Venables is on the hot seat, I believe. If they have a bad year, I think he's gone after this year. So curious about Oklahoma. I really am. Same with Auburn, though, with Jackson Arnold in at quarterback. They also brought in the highly recruited Deuce Knight. They add Eric Singleton Jr. Auburn's another team that has to have a good season, or else I think Hugh Freeze is gone. So we'll see what happens with Auburn. But they were also receiving votes. Another team that, again, just interesting, and that is Iowa. They add Mark Gronowski on the South Dakota State. transfer quarterback, and I do think he can play. I think he is probably one of the better quarterbacks that they've had there in a while. If they can even get remotely any decent, we say it every year with them, but with Brian Fuentes no longer the offensive coordinator there. We'll see if that really improves Iowa's offense under Brian Ferentz. My apologies. Sometimes you have a brain fart, so I apologize for that. But I do think without Brian Ferentz there, the offense is going to look better. I think Mark Gronowski is going to end up being pretty good for Iowa. They're kind of a dark horse for me in the Big Ten because, again, the biggest thing with them is always the offense. If they can get remotely any offense, they could be a factor in the Big Ten. I like the way they play football. I always have. I always like the fact that their defense always comes to play. You know when you play Iowa, you're going to get a tough game. Ohio State has had their share against Iowa over the past couple years. So Iowa's another team that kind of sticks out for me there. And then the last team that I really, really, really am curious about this year, and that is the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Now, with Texas Tech, they have I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They've spent a boatload of money. They brought in a lot of transfers. They're adding a lot to the recruiting class. So they are projected to have at least, it looks like 10 new starters via transfer on their team this year. Maybe even closer to 11, so I could have counted that wrong. They have added a lot of talent. They got Quentin Joyner. That was a player Ohio State was looking at, and they actually were the favorites for him up until Texas Tech just – I'll be honest, they offered more money, and Ohio State brought in C.J. Donaldson, who I am very pleased that they added, and I think he's going to be a factor this year for the Buckeyes. But that being said, they added one of the top offensive linemen in the portal, Hunter Zambrano from Ball State. I just think it's going to end up being a pretty good team. I do, and I think in the Big 12, where it is it's just open. There's no team in the Big 12 now that you think, okay, they're going to probably win it all. They have the opportunity to make noise. There's one team for me that does, and that is Texas Tech. It is. I like what they did. I want to see if a team outside of Colorado can hit the portal and make it as effective as Coach Prime, because let's be honest, he uses it almost more than anybody exclusively. Texas Tech, though, brought in so many new players to that roster. So I'm curious to see how they end up performing overall. And we'll see how that ends up shaking out for them. But finally, just a team that isn't even in it, isn't even in the coaches poll, just getting any votes. That I want to just see how they perform. Actually, two teams. First off, that is Colorado, the Buffaloes. I want to see how Coach Prime does without Shedeur. I think everyone's a little curious about that. Is Coach Prime as good of a coach as some people say he is, or was he carried by Travis Hunter and Shedeur these last couple years? That's what we don't know. I think he's a pretty good coach. I like the way he carries himself. I like the way he runs his program. I just think overall he's just a really stand-up guy, and glad to hear he's now cancer-free after that scare that he had a couple months ago. But I want to see how they do. They bring in Caden Slaughter. They get Julian Lewis. I mean, it's just the fact they got Julian Lewis is just crazy how that whole thing worked out, that recruiting saga. But Dallin Hayden, of course, is still there. I want to see how Colorado does this year. And again, they're in the Big 12. I want to see if they take a step forward. Do they remain kind of where they were last year? Do they take a step back? And does the loss of Shedeur, Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn, Jr., Will Shepard, do all those losses make a difference? So we'll see what happens with the Buffs. Then the final team, I probably won't be able to watch them a ton. I want to see how Bowling Green does with Eddie George. It's so cool having Eddie coaching a D1 program, and I believe if Eddie gets the experience necessary, maybe one day down the line he could coach the Buckeyes, and I think that would just be so cool. And again, it very well might not happen. You never know, but he's already getting experience now at Bowling Green. He goes somewhere else, maybe takes another job at Cincinnati, for instance. That's another Ohio program, and then could join the Buckeyes in 10 years or whatever the case may be. I just think it would be really cool to see. I know Ohio State's got Brian Hartline. We got James Laurinaitis as potential options if Ryan Day eventually within the next couple of years decides he wants to try to coach in the NFL, which very well might happen just given how young Ryan Day is. But I think it would be cool if one day Eddie returned to Ohio State to coach the Buckeyes. But I want to see how Bowling Green does. Drew Pine at quarterback. They added Arliss Bordenham, the Florida transfer at tight end, to replace Harold Bannon Jr. So I want to see how the Falcons do, but it's going to be fun. I'm really excited about this college football season. I don't know how you can't be. Buckeyes are returning as the national champions, losing a ton of players. Of course, you lose Will Howard, Trayvon Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Emeka Buka, Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, Cody Simon, Denzel Burke, Jordan Hancock. I'm sure I'm forgetting others. But the bottom line is the Buckeyes are just losing a ton of players. Josh Simmons, that's another one that they're losing. Donovan Jackson, yep. So the Buckeyes, G. Scott Jr. So, yeah, I tried to name as many as I could. Probably forgot a few. But, yeah, the Buckeyes are losing a ton of talent. They really are. But at Ohio State, we don't rebuild. We reload. And I'm expecting the Buckeyes to once again be there at the end of the season, competing for a national championship. But, again, didn't talk as much Ohio State tonight, and that's mainly just because I wanted to do a college football preview episode and talk about just all the other teams because, again, we're Ohio State-centric. The Scarlet and Gray podcast, you know the name. It's all Ohio State football. Sometimes we do some basketball coverage as well. So I wanted to just talk about some other teams around the country because I figured that'd be a great way to kick off season 3. And then just kind of future planning episodes. We'll see about potentially having an episode next week or the week after. We are for sure the week of the Texas game going to have 2 episodes. I can 100% promise you that. I can guarantee that. But right now, just trying to get something back on the books. That way everyone knows the show's still here. You haven't forgotten about us, and just that we are going to be doing a podcast every single week. And then 2, once the season starts, we'll be doing 2 shows every week with our Buckeye Game Day preview. If you guys have any topic suggestions, anything you guys would like us to talk about as well, feel free. You can leave that on Twitter at @DSG_podcast. You can send a direct message. You can comment on any of the shows, things you want to see. I thought about an episode where we kind of just compare maybe former Ohio State quarterbacks. We can talk about do a here and now as far as talking Buckeyes in the NFL. If you guys want to preview Buckeyes in the NFL, we can do that. That could be kind of fun. But yeah, we'll just kind of see. We'll be keeping you guys updated on Twitter about just what the future is looking like as far as are we going to do an episode next week or are we not, things along those lines. Because right now we're kind of just waiting until season starts. Recruiting is kind of slow. Obviously, the transfer portal, nothing's happening there right now. But I really wanted to say I appreciate everyone that's been tuning into the show the last couple of years. But also just stuck with us during this break we had. I know it was a long period of time. But again, family comes first. And just with us all, with myself and Nick becoming first-time dads, we want to make sure we were prioritizing family. And I know once Nick and his wife have their baby here with literally – within the next couple days. I mean, it could be right now for all I know. He'll probably be taking a little bit of a break from the show as well. So I'll be doing some more solos. But just know that if you guys have any questions, comments, you can always send them to us on Twitter at @DSG_podcast. I do have an Instagram and Facebook link there. We're not on those as much just because I do run the Twitter account. And so that's kind of the main page that we focus on. And it's a lot to just manage all 3 of those on my own, especially with my current job as well, and being a stay-at-home dad. So just a lot to manage on that end of things. But if you guys start going over there, if you start following Instagram, liking us on Facebook, or following our Facebook page, we might end up posting more on there if the interest is there. So, but I just want to say I really appreciate everybody. Again, it's such a blast being able to talk Buckeye football with you guys every single week. If you would, just do a quick favor for anyone who hasn't done this. We have 326 people watching So first off, thank you for that. I believe pretty much all of these are on Twitter. So many of you are on Twitter. Just do a quick favor. It does not take long. It'll take you 30 seconds if you have good Wi-Fi connection or 5G coverage. Just go on YouTube. Go on the channel right now, the Network 216 YouTube channel. Just drop a like on this video and subscribe if you're brand new to the channel. Don't miss any of the Scarlet and Gray podcast content that we're going to have for you all season long for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Make sure you don't miss any of it. Also, if you have not done so, a lot of you all can go on Spotify, go on Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review. Help us get those Michigan reviews out of there. Like I said, we had Michigan fans that completely tanked our Apple Podcast review page and just put a bunch of 1 stars and just spammed them. Had a bunch of people do that and with no comment about the show whatsoever. So go over there, go erase those basically just by everybody dropping a 5-star review for the show. We're always open to constructive criticism. But if you don't actually leave a review on something we can improve on, then when I see 20 people just click 1 star, it's pretty apparent that came from Michigan fans. And so I know they've done that to other shows in the past. So if you guys would go over and change that, really would appreciate that. And then like I said, we'll be back here potentially next week, maybe the week after, with another episode of the Scarlet and Gray podcast. But first off, thank you guys. Appreciate everybody that's been patient with us. Not subscribe. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at the SG_podcast. Plenty of content coming on the Twitter page, so make sure you don't miss any of that. Again, the show is proud to be partnered with Wedgewood Estates in Mansfield, 600 South Trimble Road. Wedgewood Estates, the area's premier senior residential community. Go ahead and look them up at wedgwoodseniorliving.com to schedule a tour and see why so many people for the last 27 years has made Wedgewood Estates home. I look forward to talking with you guys all again soon. And as always, you already know, go Buckeyes.